While we're over here, I figure we might take a look at a couple other pieces of equipment from years gone by. This is a 7-wheel hay rake made by, I believe this one is Farmhand. The purpose of this machine is to take 2 windrows of hay or whatever you've windrowed and roll them over and move them together. This one, I think, has been pretty heavily modified from its original design. I'm not even sure what the model is, but it's too small for anything we have today. It worked for 14-foot swaths. It was even too small for 16-foot swaths, but now we're running 18-foot swaths now, so it is not wide enough to put 2 rows together. So basically isn't useful to us anymore. This is a 715 International Combine. This combine is a windrow special, meaning it was designed more for pickup operations behind a swather than it was for straight cutting, but it was capable in either case. As it sits today, this one actually has the pickup head on it. The reel is taken off so that the pickup head can be installed, and it's just laying in front of the platform right now. This one has either a 15 or a 16-foot head. I can't remember exactly which, but it was the right size for both straight cutting and pickup operations. And that's a big difference between combines of this age and new ones, is now it's common to have 2 different heads. This one, you had 1 head, and it took a bit of effort to switch operations with it. Not nearly as much effort, though, as it took to actually switch heads, because these things were not made to come off easily. So taking the head off or changing heads on it was quite a process. In some ways, this combine represented a sort of end of an era. The 715, 815, and 915 were the last series of combines that were produced before they switched from conventional straw walker and cylinder bar machines to full rotary machines. This was our main combine back when I was a lot younger, and the one I learned how to operate on. I was riding with my grandpa one day, and he pointed it down the field in a straight line and said, "You take over, I'm going to step out." And he did exactly that. He opened the door and climbed down the ladder and left. So that's how I learned how to run a combine. Like most things in life, it was kind of a trial by fire situation. There were no buttons or screens or computers back in this era either. Everything was very mechanical. In fact, I think the only 2 switches you probably had were the light switch and the key switch to start the thing. Another difference between this machine and more modern machines is the unloading auger. The unloading auger on these machines weren't meant to fold in and out when you weren't using them. They were only meant to fold in for transport, so you'd have to manually get up there, unpin it, pull it out, and then there's a manual locking lever back there that you use to lock it, and then when you want to transport it, you unlock it, fold it back in, and manually pin it back. Up on top of the cab, where there's only a wire frame left, that used to be a cab air filter and a heat exchanger. This was before air conditioning was popular, so this one had a swamp cooler on it, which used water instead of refrigerant. And I don't know exactly how they worked. They were kind of popular before my time, but that was the heat exchanger. Here we have a 14-foot, 15-foot chisel plow, I think. Made into a 14-foot. I don't remember exact footages on it. I think that's how that worked, but you'll notice the shanks on each end are turned upside down, pointing up instead of down. That was to make it narrower, because this particular one had a rear hitch on it that you towed a disc drill behind, so this was a tandem seating operation. We used this for quite a few years. If you were using it as a chisel plow, you'd fold the N2 shanks down so that you could get your extra width, but when you're seeding with it, you want to make sure it matches the width of your seed tool. So the seed tool was a little bit narrower, so the N2 shanks got turned upside down. This here is a International 241 baler. And then right beside it, we have its very close relative, the International 2400 baler. The 241 was the original. Notice it had all narrow belts and was missing some side shielding that the 2400 has. We'll take a look at that in a second. But other than that, they are very, very similar balers. Here's the 2400. It's got the wider belts on the outside, narrow belts on the inside. But other than that, very much the same, except we see a little bit of side shielding there. And a mouse that's terrified. You might notice that the left side chain guard on both of these balers is missing. That isn't because it fell off, and it also isn't because we were anti-safety. Really quite the opposite. When you were running these things, chaff and hay and everything else would get packed in those chain guards around the bearings and the chains, and if you were going to have a fire on one of these, that was where you were going to have it. So we took those off for fire response. Both of these had a wide belt. That was the floor belt. That's what spun your bale as you were making it. There was some technique to getting a bale started with them. You had to weave back and forth just perfectly, because if you messed that up, the hay would bunch up and flip your belts, and then you had to kick it out and clean it up and start over again. I put a lot of bales through these balers. This 2400 was the one I ran most of the time, and 241 over there was the original one. That was the one my grandpa ran. Here we have a Massey Ferguson 35 Swather. I'm not sure what the model 35 really means. Pretty sure it's not 35 feet wide. This Swather had canvases, as they usually all did back in the day. This was made to swath grain rather than hay. There were two conditions that required a swather. One was sensitive crops like oats, where hitting it with a reel would tend to knock the seed off the plant before it got in the combine. You'd swath it while it was a little green, and this was a little bit more gentle. The other is a lot of times things ripen uneven, and you can swath the crop to kind of force that ripening process a little bit. So this basically windrows up the crop, and then you let it finish drying down, and then you come in with the combine and the pickup header. The reel fell off of this one somehow. I'm not really sure how, because the block at the end is still together and intact. So I'm not really sure what happened here, but if we ever want to use this again for anything, it's probably for the better, because over the years, when these things sit out here like this, especially if they're parked facing north and south, the wind just sits and spins that reel, and it will spin for days and days and days and days. And over the years, it's like running it 365 days a year as that reel spinning. So it eventually wears everything out. But this one looks like it might just need some new wood blocks, maybe some tensioner pulleys and a belt or two, and it would actually be serviceable again. The other kind of interesting thing about this is it had built-in transports, so it's hard to see with the sun the way it is, but the hitch that you would pull it with in the field is right here, but it's actually folded in instead of folded out. That was the transport position, and then you would flip this back axle so that it would pull down the road the long way. And then over on this side, you would have a hitch, which I just stepped on in the grass. It's right there. So in transport mode, you pull it with this hitch right there, and those wheels on this side are caster wheels, so you had your front pivot point. When you went to use it in the field, you'd take that hitch off, you'd pin those wheels, you'd rotate those wheels back there, you'd expand that hitch, and then you'd hook up to the other hitch on it. Again, one of those things that wouldn't be tolerated too well today. It's all about speed and convenience. Things back then took a lot more time, took a lot more effort. Here we just have a set of Harrows for a chisel plow. I don't remember why we changed these out. These used to be on our main chisel plow, and then at some point in time we just replaced the Harrows on it completely. And I don't remember exactly why we did that. These are Midwest Harrow is the manufacturer on these. And then this little ripper device here is something that will never be used again because we don't have the drill or the tractor that this was set up to mount on anymore. And the reason for this was back in the days of the disc drill, you would run a chisel plow over the field first, and then you would come in with the disc drills later. At least we did with the bigger ones. I guess we didn't with the little ones, but with the bigger ones, we didn't have enough horsepower to pull the chisel plow and the drills at the same time. The tractors weren't sized to do that. So had two tractors, you'd come in with a chisel plow first, you would get the weeds out of it, then you would come in with the disc drill and the tractor and come over it and seed it. The problem was when you ran over it with the tractor to seed it, you would compact wheel tracks really bad. So this little ripper, track whacker is what we called it, went behind the tires on the tractor you used to seed to rip the wheel tracks up and break that compaction before the disc drill came over the top of it. This was back before all the no-till stuff became popular. We were definitely tilling quite a bit. We would normally do the whole place on 2/3, 1/3 rotation. 2/3 would be seeded every year, and 1 year would be out of rotation every year. So we didn't do the no-till stuff in my earlier days of farming. That was something that came much later. Hope you enjoyed a quick look at some equipment from the past and a little glimpse into some of the stuff I ran when I got my start in farming. That's kind of one of the hotspot places we have where we have some old equipment sitting, so I just figured since we were there doing some other stuff anyway, we'd take a little look at some of it. Thanks for watching.